confusing. There's something inside of New York. I'm pretty sure it's inside the U.S.A. I don't know if it's in the outside places with this thing. I mean, it should be inside because it's called Internal Revenue Service. It's IRS. I don't know why it was started. I don't know how it was started. In the public school system, they don't teach about it. It has some kind of code, like Internal Revenue Code, but it's for when you get employment, which in this area, I've had some employment. When I've had employment, I've participated with this IRS, but then there's years where there's been absolutely no opportunity. There's been nothing earned. There's been nothing to report. And so they're saying that now so they have this intermediary, the way it was explained to me, because again, I have no education in it, is that you have to hire some intermediary in order to help you file, because they know the code. But that's it. And it's just this thing that the humans do. But there's no explanation as to when it was started, why it was started. It says it's internal revenue, but when I look around, it says that they're down to 80,000 employees. Then I'm thinking to myself, now I've seen the U.S. flag being used outside of the U.S., but with a different flag and confusing things. And I'm like, so now, is that because, I mean, like, were things moved from the internal staff to external staff? I mean, is it been more dependent on an external staff? Is that why the internal system is suffering as it is? Or the loss of voice and freedom, in my particular instance, has been going on in New York? I mean, this gets very, very confusing. And I don't even know, where do you even bring these level of questions up to? Because it's not addressed in school. They expect you to do it, but you have no idea where your money is going, how to participate. It's not an easy process. And now it looks like they've overcomplicated. It looks like they've hired a lot of not us, which compromises the Internal Revenue Service tax ID, and then now they're saying that they don't even have enough staff to answer the phones, and they're on huge delays. But has this deterioration in the IRS service been because of all this movement of jobs overseas? I hear this on the news a lot, jobs overseas. Where overseas? Where are they going overseas? I mean, or is somebody overseeing us? I mean, like, where do you find a knowledgeable, intelligent human to ask these questions where you don't get in trouble yourself? Like, that simple freedom of speech and ability to question has been completely taken away and deprived within my life frame. That is one of the scariest things when you say you live in a free country and you say you have freedom of speech and freedom of movement and all these democratic freedoms. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't feel it. And it's been really, really getting more scary as time drags on in trying to find work and then health being taxed in some taxation without representation on the body for reasons you can't figure out. and almost feeling like you're falsely imprisoned in someone else's whatever.
Two, does that make you feel better? They are backlogged, they are understaffed. What does that mean? That your refund could take a little while. Scott McFarlane is outside IRS headquarters with more on the story. Scott, we should remind people that government workers at this time are having a tough time too, right?
Right, and they call them government workers. Well, that's really interesting because there's a higher ratio of not us. And if they're calling themselves government, that's a problem.
Yeah, Gail, good morning. The IRS admits it is overtaxed this year as well. Still trying to dig out from last year's tax filings. And at one point,
Now, this gentleman is claiming to be in Washington, D.C., but this is what gets confusing. There's the Internal Revenue Service, which is the interior 48 states without going to external, like Alaska and Hawaii. But there's a lot of, I would say, other nations now all of a sudden involved inside of this IRS. It would appear by visual confirmation, even when they do this, I'll put it to the.
they were taking 1,500 phone calls per second. Dave Weinberg is always connected and says he can run his Maryland business from his home computer while walking the dog or even on a snowy spring day at the park. So he finds it particularly frustrating. He spent so much time on hold trying to reach the IRS.
You can't even get them on the phone 3 weeks at a time.
You couldn't get them on the phone for weeks at a time.
Weeks at a time. I mean, it was tax season, and that's not an excuse, though. They're chronically underfunded.
In a report,
Are they, or is it a problem with the telephone service yet again? I've had the same problem myself, looking for answers, but like my phone calls almost being rerouted. And there's no way for me to confirm that. So that makes it even more frustrating as to when you try to lifeline yourself out, are you purposely being thrown to a dead end? Or to the end of somebody's wanting it to be pulled in some other direction.
to Congress last week, the IRS acknowledged only about 20% of callers have been getting through to live IRS agents at times this month. And that's actually an improvement over 2021 when just 11% of calls were answered. It comes as the agency navigates what it considers a perfect storm. More than 3 million tax returns are still being processed from 2021. Budget cuts and COVID disruptions have shrunk staffing to less than 80,000 people, the same level it was nearly half a century ago. While more than
Half a century ago, so that was 50 years ago. Again, that lines up with this Title IX they were talking about yesterday, with a problem with this sexual discrimination. And then if I go to the Encanto movie, which they just brought out, which is one of those urban whatever, they had in that movie doors. I mean, I've watched Ancient Aliens, and they mentioned at one point the mandala, which is a different ancient culture, speaking of the doors, of many doors to many worlds. So, speaking in Encanto terms of taking a door away, and it just took completely disappearing like the main character yesterday in the movie. That's exactly what this feels like. And then in that movie also they put the holy ceremony where they throw colored powder all over themselves. That was in the movie referenced yesterday as well, along with a couple of other pieces. This is a major problem.
more than 16 million people, roughly 10% of taxpayers, still file on paper. which the National Taxpayer Advocate calls the agency's kryptonite. Often the people processing the paper are the same ones who answer the phones.
Now, again, here we are. I'm looking at a deficiency in the us, at the people that are supposed to be staffing the White House with the portraits on the wall, with the family responsibility, in something to do with this U.S. system. It gets confusing because, again, the education here in New York has been so horrible in my ability to reach education that's much needed, or to find someone who is knowledgeable, but yet there seems that others are overeducated in some rewritten whatever. So now it's a little hard to participate and to know how to participate effectively and where one's needed, like I've said before, like where to stand. I mean, it's like this evaporating whatever, and it's being replaced with, I would have gladly taken an IRS job if they would have taught me and if I was needed, but I've been replaced by something that's not us inside the internal North America. That gets confusing.
On average, our hold times can range anywhere between 30 and 40
And what is he?
minutes.
The IRS's Ken Corbin says the agency is hiring new employees and contractors to lighten the load, but won't see most of the impact until future tax seasons. How many more do you need?
I would say, we need thousands more employees still.
And he is working the IRS Chief Taxpayer Experience Officer. Well, that's interesting. How come he knows so much about the tax code and the Internal Revenue Service, and I haven't even, in the schools, I wasn't even taught these things, nor were my children. I don't believe Linda was either. They have this tax advisor they have to use. I mean, why was the IRS, originally allowed to function? It's a little confusing. Was it one of those layers of protection? Was it a VIG service? Well, if it's a VIG, why is he the chief? And why am I required to pay in? That's really confusing.
Will coming to join us. We are an aging workforce, and we know that we have to prepare for the future.
Even as
That aging workforce, it really feels like some structure was put in place for specific family estate reasons, to give state participation, to give more social whatever, or opportunities. And then it feels like over the whatever, the family estate personnel have somehow just disappeared and infiltrated, has been using the same architecture or orchestructure that was put in place for a different reason. But it feels like it's a lot harder to find family members in these service industries, and it's really hard to even participate because it's this quiet changing landscape and nobody's being really honest about it. And the original reason why it was started is now all of a sudden painted completely different.
As the tax season ends, the IRS is hiring thousands of new workers and having job fairs all across the country in a tight job market where it's difficult.
I've been to a handful of job fairs in New York. Not once has the IRS ever been to one of the job fairs on Long Island or in New York when I've been there. Oh, and I went to one at Hofstra too.
Difficult to find applicants applicants who have a knowledge of the tax code. If you are scrambling this weekend, the IRS strongly advises you file electronically and use direct deposit. Tony?
We'll help you get that refund more quickly. Scott, thank you very much. Up next, Vlad Duty has got the stories he'll be talking about today. But first, it is 7:42. Time to check your local weather.
I mean, to help, again, you have a paying job, you pay into the system, their service is supposed to be afforded you, that kind of thing. That's the way it's been explained. I don't know if that's how they're actually running it, but I don't have a job and I have no way of earning income, so there is no active participation at the moment. I don't know how to correct the situation, and I have no idea what the future on this level of whatever. I mean, it's horrific. It's frightening. It is totally frightening to sit back and to watch it on the TV unfold this way. Star 1978, Star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.